make it so they're not going to proxy each other. But EJK's been playing a lot of test map. He's been playing a lot of games. He's pretty much the only high Grandmaster player playing regularly on the test map. Semper, he commented that pretty much every time he queues up for the test map, the player he finds is EJK. So we'll have to see how it goes from here. I can turn the sound back up. We've got Semper in the bottom right, starting to understand all the changes here. I think he has a pretty okay idea. EJK, with a lot more experience, we'll have to see what his opener is. I played him in TVT earlier. He seemed to favor that mech style. But we were playing on Apotheosis, which is a bit of a longer map as well. The removal to tank drop, I think, is one of the biggest changes because in TVT, because this makes simultaneously mech more effective, because now Bio no longer has the mobility to be able to move tanks and put them in position and have the mobility of the Bio. They have to choose one or the other. So if mech has that ability to be able to move around and match Bio for mobility, at least for the most part, maybe not perfectly, but be a lot closer, then it becomes a lot more viable. Also, you have options like the Cyclone early on, which can deal. It's pretty cost-effective on its own, and it's a mobile unit you can use to get a third base against small amounts of units. Obviously, later on, like EJK said, you want to have siege tanks. Once you get 5+ minutes into the game, siege tanks become a lot more attractive option. But early on, Cyclones can kind of fill that gap that especially mech had, where they just didn't have the mobility to be able to defend multiple bases, and that means their economy was not as good, and if your economy is not as good, eventually you're going to get picked apart by a more mobile player. So we see EJK opening up with a Reaper Expand, Semper opening up with a Reaper Expand. They're looking in the mirror right now in this TVT. We're going to have to see who comes out on top. Semper with that slight incredibly meaningful. No, not really. But EJK slapping down the command center as well. Immediately going for the factory behind. Is he actually going to opt for the reactor instead? Okay, there's the factory. And immediately going to reactor. On the other side, we see factory and reactor. Well, there you go. EJK on the retreat. Semper gets the first shot off. The SCV there to try to draw a little bit of fire. And that's going to allow Semper to get it. EJK to get another shot. Will be enough to kill the Reaper. It shouldn't. At this level, killing the Reaper is actually going to be a pretty big deal, considering there's no units in production. They're both making a reactor. But it looks like Semper's going to get away to the high ground, and he'll be fine. At least for now. Yeah, EJK doesn't want to risk it. There's a risk that a second Reaper is being produced. That was pretty common earlier on in Legacy of the Void, where you would go for a second Reaper to try to catch someone who's going for a Reaper immediately into a reactor. But that more is a transition into Bio. Nowadays, we're seeing a lot more Reactored Hellion, Reactored Factory in general, whether it's on the test map or anywhere else. It's become a lot more popular as people have kind of figured out the timings of the Reapers and found ways to defend against them and negate them. Alright, so no major changes. It looks like we got a tech lab on this side. The Reaper's going to get a full scout for EJK. So a pretty big win for him so far, especially if that Reaper gets out of there. On the other side, Semper is in the dark. He has no idea what EJK is doing, especially not the fact that he's making double Cyclone at the moment. Alright. We see two Hellions on the way. A single Cyclone coming out of Semper, but it looks like he wants to go for... Is that going to be a Raven or a Banshee? He has enough gas for Cloak, and it looks like it is going to be a Banshee. Cyclones leave you with mediocre anti-air. Like EJK was mentioning, the lock-on does not kill a Banshee. It does not kill a Liberator. It does not kill a Medivac. It is the wet paper bag of anti-air. It's pretty much useless. So it looks like Semper going to get that scout a little bit later on, but he's going to see there is a Viking. He's going to see there is a Reactored Factory, and there's no intention of going for Bio here, as well as the NG Bay timing. Not a big deal either way. But EJK going to get the counter scout, and seeing this Cloak is actually going to be a pretty huge deal. That's going to allow him to work up towards more than likely a Raven. Get his turrets up. The NG Bay is already on the way. We see at the front a couple Hellions. Two Cyclones on the way up, too. And they're going to tear right through those Hellions. Is there enough on the ground, though? He can target down some SCVs, but he doesn't want to bite off more than he can chew. He knows the Banshee is more than likely on the way. EJK with the defensive Raven on the other side. It looks like a Viking was dropped onto the ground. in order to kill a Reaper. So that happened. No real worker kills. The double lock-on. There's no cloak yet. The Cyclones are trying their best. The lock-on is broken by the high ground vision there. Smart move out of Semper. The Viking tried to get the finishing blow. EJK, unfortunately, supply blocked here pretty heavily. And that's going to hurt him as he tries to produce continually out of this factory. We see a third command center on the way, but he still has 500 minerals in the bank. Looks like he wants to go for air control. Semper, on the other hand, dipping down for that third command center on the low ground. So that's going to give him that innate economic advantage of no travel distance. He hasn't gotten supply blocked, but let's look at the worker count. About dead even. A pretty distinct difference here. We have the reactored starport. The scan comes out of Semper, and he actually sees the reactored starport. I'll talk about that in a second. But a reactor is on the way, but Semper has not been producing out of his starports. He's coming out with a push now. 3 Cyclones involved, but with a Raven, with those actual extra damage auto turrets, a couple Vikings, and plenty of Hellions, this push is ill-fated at best if he actually wants to attack. The Banshee finds its way into the main. So that might open up an opportunity. He delays the third base as well. So Semper trying to bait something out. Another Banshee flying into a turret. Not a great usage of a Banshee there. Looks like the other Banshee will be knocked out of the sky as well. So EJK securing more of that air superiority. And with the fact Vikings are so strong on the ground, one of the big buffs to Vikings that EJK especially was talking about in TBT is that Vikings on the ground do +8 to mechanical units. So if you take air control, you wipe them out of the sky, and then you drop to the ground, you actually have a pretty high damage unit to support your ground army if you're going for an attack. A single tank over here, and he's got the auto turret, putting in a lot of damage. He drops down the Vikings to add their damage as well, and he's going to take out a Cyclone. A second auto turret, 2 Cyclones going to fall. And it looks like Semper just tearing through the front here. There's a single tank on the way, but there's no Ravens. A tank is sieging up. He has 2 more Vikings, and this push is looking potentially deadly. 3 Vikings on the deck. Semper does have this third, but for how long? And now you see that air control. He's going to have to pick up these Vikings off the ground to work on the air. He gets the Raven. We're going to see a little bit of a weird dance here as the Vikings jump up and jump down. Next up, they're going to jump on it. And that's going to be enough for EJK to back off. He sees a siege tank. He sees the amount of Hellions. And he sees that attacking forward is probably going to be a mistake. So let's see. The worker count, slightly in favor of EJK. He did not have his third base landed, so he didn't have that extra SCV production. He did a decent chunk of damage. That's reflected in the supplies. He has a slightly better army supply. And now, this is something that you don't usually see, but we're going to use the unit tab and actually be very interested in what each player is going for. 4 tanks to 2, a lot of Vikings. This is the real story from EJK. Is going for the air superiority and the fact that those Vikings can drop onto the ground and potentially wipe out the siege tanks. The Vikings hit the deck for Semper here. Remember, they're going to give air superiority as well if he wants to do a slow tank push forward. EJK, seeing that everything is landed. Where's Semper scanning right now? Where's that scan out of Semper? Yeah, he scans forward, but he doesn't know where the army is. He finally sees it. He knows that this was a threat. He's bringing out the barracks. And Semper going to be forced to retreat. He's going to be a bit out of position. And how does he actually deal with this siege tank push from the low ground? He can't get rid of these Vikings. He just doesn't have enough Vikings. It's very simple. He's going to siege up. He uses 1 Hellion to soak the damage. That's actually a very smart move. So it looks like Semper might have just enough to push this back as the army of EJK is tied up heavily in these Vikings. The Vikings hitting the ground. Going to do a lot of damage to the siege tanks. Is there target fire out of EJK? It doesn't look like it so far. That is going to be the end of air superiority. He did use his Vikings to get ground damage. He's going to drop down again. Remember, SCVs are mechanical units, and they are going to be able to do a lot of damage, but Semper will clean it up. And look, I'm so not... These fights are so weird, because you're not used to Vikings just throwing themselves at the ground so often. And that's kind of... It's really weird to tell, like, what's going on here. Another push is coming in, another fleet of Vikings, and now there's no defenses. The siege tanks are out of position. Semper is down 20 supply, and it looks like it's going to be a little bit more. Blue Flame has completed, just now started for Semper. EJK pushing through. The tanks still do a lot of damage, even in single target. And EJK biting off a decent chunk of Semper's army, but also losing several of his own tanks. And I think as time goes on, that might be the real story. The tank count, oh, still 6-4 for EJK. He's got 78 SCVs. He needs to calm down there. He's got enough. He's done. Okay, stop. He's got enough SCVs, and now all he has to do is slam out these mech units and find the right position. Semper is going back, and he's going forth, but he's just getting kind of bullied around by EJK, who has air superiority, he has map control, and he has a superior understanding of how to fight with these units. A little bit of a low here. Good scan out of EJK to see exactly where that army is. Whenever the tanks now do even more damage, especially against armored when sieged up. They will wreck you in 2-3 shots if you try to attack in on the low ground. Especially if they have a few Hellions, Hellbats, or Vikings on the ground in front of them. So you have to be very careful. The position war will continue. We're back to the tank Viking of Wings of Liberty, but this time on steroids, as both these units do so much damage to mech. So we've got that very Wings of Liberty-esque standoff here. Tanks, Vikings, a handful of Hellions. Both players at deadlocked at 150 supply, and it looks like we're going to split King Sejong Station in half here. Okay. What is the Viking count? 7-7. 12-8 in the tanks, but 15 Hellions to 8. So the mobility factor goes to Semper if he's able to get map control. Yeah, we see some Hellions coming around, but his killing worker is going to matter. Not really. They're both at probably more than enough SCVs. They just need to slam out their production. Scans everywhere, sensor towers everywhere. Here we go. Yeah, as soon as you see the tanks on siege trying to move forward, EJK is setting up a wide siege line here, which, if he's able to maintain it... Oh, there's another attack coming in the side. The sensor towers are already in position. And the Vikings at the front. Planetary Fortress, will it factor into this? We'll see. The tanks are barely in range to siege up the sensor tower, and that's going to make it a lot more difficult for Semper to have a beat on these units very regularly. You see, he knows the threats, supply depots to watch for Hellion run-bys or anything else that might find its way around. But I think this game is going to come down to air control, like a lot of TVTs, especially that get to this level. Will we see the new battlecruiser? Oh, there's just not enough Vikings. He has to drop them. You're losing the fight. You got to drop your Vikings down. Otherwise, you got to minimize... Well, actually, better target fire here. The tanks will re-siege. Tanks on the low ground. No scan. We've got the boys in front. Who's winning this fight? It looks like Semper actually biting off a huge chunk of EJK's army, but EJK maintaining air control. I must have misjudged the Viking fight. There are a handful of Hellions on the right-hand side, but Planetary is pretty effective against them. It looks like EJK has, when the smoke clears, maintained control of the situation and is actually pushing forward. He's on the 5 bases. There's a handful of Hellions doing whatever they can to keep EJK at home. The worker count dropping, but does that really matter when he has this many bases? Semper going up to 84 SCVs, which just exacerbates the entire army supply problem here. Air control has been regained. He's pushing forward with those unsieged tanks, and they're getting obliterated. And there's the damage of the new siege tank. Oh my god. That wasn't even... The Vikings hit the deck, but it's not going to be enough. EJK is going to push through. You just cannot attack into a siege line like that. And EJK forced eventually the fight, and he forced eventually the win. All right, Semper wants to play best of 3. EJK wants to play best of 3. We'll see if there's a particular map Semper wants. Go Frozen. He wants Frozen Temple. I think you guys can agree that was a pretty evenly matched game. EJK obviously has a better understanding of how the new units work. I think Semper overall, at least as it stands right now, is a slightly better player, but EJK just has the knowledge of playing so many games on the test map. He's using the Vikings. He's using the siege tanks. How they need to be used in order to maximize his damage. You going to get in on the games? I don't think I can compete with either of these players, as their Terran. Maybe ZVT I could try, but... Alright. Well, hopefully you guys are enjoying the cast. I just decided, I played EJK on the test map, and we just went from there. But, let's see when these players are ready. Alright, here we go. EJK versus Semper. Game number 2 here on the balanced test map. Both players meching it happen so far. Alright. Here we go. On the bottom right, we have from Root Gaming, Semper. In the top left. Also, well, actually Semper's from Canada. EJK is from America. Well, he's Korean, but he's from America. So, there you go. Korean American. Very early gas out of Semper. So he obviously has tech on his mind here. On the other side, EJK looks like he's going to be opting for the 1-Rax expand more than likely once again. Now, the real question is, are we going to see a second gas early on out of Semper? It'll be a little bit, but if he gets a second gas before this barracks finished, we know he's going for a 1-base pressure. What kind of 1-base pressure? There are a lot of different flavors nowadays. We see the gas on the way, and actually EJK breaking out the double Rex and gonna go for the depot block. So going for the Reapers. This has to be Reapers. So, we're actually playing here. Yeah, sure. The Reapers didn't get any changes on the balanced test map, but they can still win you games. It's definitely one of those builds. He's not... Oh, if he doesn't raise that depot at the last second. Now, Semper going to be a little bit suspicious here. When you get 2 depots this early, you're probably trying to hide something. I like this. EJK's actually baiting him with the AI. Trying to bait him up the ramp to get a little bit more damage, and then closing the door. Just a little bit of fancy depot work there. Not that it's going to affect too much. And yeah, once again, Semper getting baited up the ramp. Now, the fact that EJK hasn't gone for an expansion for this long, Semper's getting an idea of what's happening. The reason he's sticking around and he's effectively sacrificing that SCV is because he needs to know. He's suspicious right now. You don't go for a double depot. Notice Semper doesn't have a double depot. And you don't delay your expansion that much unless you're hiding something. I don't think Semper's quite figured out exactly what that something's going to be, though. As right now he's got the reactor on the way. There's going to be 3 Reapers out before any other units here out of Semper. So it's very possible. Semper could just die to 3 Reapers. I don't think it's likely, but if this Reaper gets caught, the game pretty much ends. This is one of those gotcha builds. Of course, once this finishes, he's going to have access to Hellions. He's going to have Marines coming out as well. But the triple Reaper, this is the timing when you come in. There are not going to be any more units. If Semper doesn't react very quickly and accurately on his Reaper, then he's going to take a lot of... At this point, I don't think he loses the game. But he's going to see the Reapers immediately moves back. He knows the danger this poses, and now he realizes what's happening. We see the Hellion coming out, doing some good hits so far. And actually perfectly handled there. EJK a little bit greedy. You got 2 choices when you go for this Reaper build. Either, 1, you go up the ramp, you kind of take a look, and you see how much damage can I get done. Or 2, you gamble, you go in the side position, maybe you catch a unit or 2, or you catch them completely off guard, and you kill SCVs. EJK took a gamble there. That Semper wouldn't be prepared or he wouldn't react in time, and he lost that gamble. Now, he's behind. He went for the Reapers, and now he doesn't have Reapers. Very simple. So Semper handling that beautifully. And once again, that does come down to, like, you have about 2 seconds to react. Less than 2 seconds to react correctly. If you don't do it, then you're going to get really far behind against those Reapers. But once again, that putting on a clinic there. So where's the transition here? It looks like EJK is going to go He does have the 2 barracks, but he also has 2 factories, so I think we figured out where this is going. He lays down a scan. He needs to know the transition here. 2 Reapers in the middle of the map. EJK going to get a little bit caught out, and this is actually getting really dicey here for EJK. A single Cyclone against a Cyclone, and anything more than 1 Cyclone is going to make this very, very difficult. He's going to need to repair this. Constantly. Will it be enough? He's targeting down the other Cyclone, but the repairs aren't coming off in time. Both Cyclones kill each other. But that will leave all these Hellions and the Reaper, and the worker count starting to reflect the damage that EJK failed to do early on. A couple more Hellions coming out, but this is getting real bad for EJK. Let's not pretend here. Remember, the Banshee is already on the way across. There are no turrets. I think EJK, while he was dealing with this, pretty much forgot the Banshee was going to happen, and now Semper should be able to get the Banshee in time. He even scouted there wasn't a turret on the low ground. He can come in and he can pretty much clean up all of these SCVs. He's going for the Cyclone. The Cyclone not going to be able to get the lock on in time. Will this turret even finish? This is going from bad to worse right now. Oh god, that turret needs to finish. GG. EJK going for the double Reaper and getting burned for it. Very simple. TVT can still play like that. And that's going to be 1-1. Very quickly evening it up. All right. Let's see if EJK has a map he would prefer. How about Frost? All right, how about it? Well, he says he'll be right back in a moment. So overall, I think EJK has definitely demonstrated a better understanding of the test map, but Semper does not make dumb mistakes. Let's put it that way. Very simply, he does not make dumb mistakes. So EJK getting caught a little bit off guard there, reacting a little bit slow, not really pushing with the Reapers quickly enough, and at the wrong place, and simply dying. Which is always a risk in TVT, especially mirror matchups. One unit just changes everything. And there you go. So, EJK says he'll be right back. One moment. How close am I? I'm not close enough. Very close, but not close enough. But yeah, hopefully you guys are enjoying the cast, the new balance test map. Like I said, I'd like to cast a little bit more often. Looks like both players are ready to go. We're gonna jump in to the final match of this best of 3. Winner takes home $30. These are $15. Puck gets 20 as well. I'm gonna have to distribute all that after the stream. All right. And now for our final match in this TVT showdown. It is gonna be in the top left-hand corner from Root Gaming. Semper.
Your dedication will be rewarded.
Welcome back, Brett. 4 months in a row. Glad you still enjoy. And the bottom left is gonna be from, I believe the name of the team is the CrayS Squad. I saw something about that a while ago. So from the CrayS Squad, it's EJK. This time opting, both players opting for the early gas. Looks like we see something like, yeah, fuck words. All right. Oh yeah, guess first for another player. We see an SCV scout coming out at identical timings. This matchup is somewhat figured out. And they're both going to see the SCV. So we're at even information. This is kind of like ZVZ. When both players have their overlords passing here, and a little bit different. And Semper should actually go up this ramp here. There's no depot for either player. Both are going to scout the lack of a second gas, indicating this is very likely to be a Reaper expand with a quick factory behind. Now, of course, the usual flavor is a reactor and then flipping that factory over to a reactor. We haven't seen any player go for the super quick
dedication will be rewarded.
Cyclone push. Thank you, Batmantis30 for the sub. Thanks for joining us. I'd be excited to see some sort of really quick Cyclone Viking push, but neither player really has enough gas to pull that off right now. You need to get the second gas around, and that's a pretty big commitment that the SCV actually would have scouted relatively early. So we're going to have to see from here. A single Reaper making its way up. EJK is in position for this one. It looks like Semper doesn't want to take the risk of jumping to the high ground. EJK on the right-hand side with the SCV as well. So as the builds go, we are nearly dead even. Second gas for EJK and Semper. We've actually got 2 Reapers, though. So a bit of a dramatic difference here. There are no other units out of EJK. He's going to be forced to retreat, and losing this Reaper would actually be really bad. Losing any time building this CC also really hurts as well. Yeah, the Reaper going to make it to the high ground. He's going to have to wait for 2 Hellions. So Semper going to get a decent bit of damage done. Now, the cost here is not small. Especially if he loses both these Reapers. He lost 1, okay. Going for this means he's delayed his factory with its reactor, which means EJK now has his Hellions out. He also has the ability to go for the starport a little bit earlier. Actually, I take that one back. With this build, you actually just go for the factory later. A Cyclone on the way as well. So, did he do enough to justify the 2 Reapers? I would go with yes. He's actually down... No, never mind. I can't read or speak. Okay. He's up a few workers here, as you might imagine, after he kills SCVs. None of this was making sense to me because apparently I can't read numbers. So they didn't teach me that in American school. Semper looks like he's going to opt towards the Banshee once again. Not necessarily a guarantee. It could be a Raven, but I think Banshee makes the most sense. We see a scan immediately. He's going to pop the Cloak. I think at this point, this could easily be a cancel Cloak. Cloak isn't very expensive, though. It's pretty useful to have. So does Semper just cancel the Cloak and immediately go for the Raven? There you go. I'm a genius, even though that's a very simple play that a lot of players will make, and I think EJK might be wise to this as well. He'll kind of understand the context of the situation. The entry bay is on the way. A scan coming out, going to scout the reactored starport as well with the double Viking. But is there any anti-air here? The Cyclone not going to be able to take out the Liberator easily. It doesn't actually kill it in one lock-on. The lock-on anti-air is actually very mediocre. So, gonna get some kills here. The lock-on gonna caress the Liberator as it attempts to do damage. Some Hellions coming in. Gonna get a nice line on these SCVs as well. The Liberator is still not dead. The third lock-on is the charm, though. So that really demonstrates how shitty the lock-on is now. Yeah, it's not anti-air. Semper does have a third base on the way. But at this point, EJK has been working towards air control this entire time. He's got reactors on everything. He knows he's going to have it, so he's going for the Liberator. A single Cyclone push with a decent chunk of Hellions coming out. We've got 2 Cyclones on the way for EJK, but they're not here yet. He's going to need to drop these Vikings down in order to be able to contend with this push. Right, here comes the Cyclone, but the damage of the Vikings is high. He'll take this out pretty quickly, but the turret on the other side does a lot of damage as well. He's pushing through. The 2 Cyclones should be enough to clean this up, but the turret allows him to clean up a lot of units, and Semper going to create a decent chunk of space for himself to keep this third base. Now Semper's down a bit in supply. The worker count also reflects that, but he has 3 command centers against 2. So as long as Semper can hold on, and he's done a lot to help himself do that, then he's going to be okay. On the other side, though... Wait, did he kill the Raven? No, there is still the Raven out. That's a big deal right now. As if he loses air control, as if EJK loses air control, he can't really do any more damage here because these units are just too effective. So I think Semper did enough there with the combination of the auto turret. Remember, the auto turret got buffed to 24 instead of 16 DPS. In order to keep EJK back and secure himself a decent position. I'm not going to go with lead. I think... Oh, nice turret placement, by the way. Almost blocking out that Cyclone. I think he will eventually finish it off. But the Liberator's taking advantage of this opportunity and going to pick off a few more of these SCVs. A great job out of EJK taking advantage of the opportunity and going to create a lot of space for himself. Another Liberator in the main as well. All right, doubling up on the damage. And also Hellions in the third. The triple-pronged harass out of EJK. This is actually getting ridiculous. This is nearly critical damage. It's now 52 to 35 SCVs. The third base of EJK is completed, and in the span of about 30 seconds, including these the Vikings are on the ground. One Viking does not counter two Vikings, and Semper is getting picked apart right now. Remember, SCVs are mechanical units, and they take extra damage from those Vikings. So beautiful harass out of EJK, and Semper gonna have a lot of trouble stabilizing. They're on even production. The worker count, 56 to 40. The army supply, about even, but the value of the army... I actually favor EJK's army here a little bit. He has a couple Cyclones, he has a Raven, and he has a superior Viking count for now. So he should be able to deflect any pushes. But how does he come back into this is the thing. Eventually, EJK will be able to lean on his economy and push forward. So it looks like Semper gambling with air control here. He's just continually producing Hellions and Vikings and trying to get some more production up. This is more to just catch EJK off guard. Since he can't really afford Cyclones or Siege Tanks right now, he's just going to try to get EJK to overcommit, it seems like is the case. Yeah, he's got triple factory on the way. He's just trying to put out enough units, and oh, EJK getting caught in the middle of the map while he was microing on the other side. And it looks like there's air control. He's actually going to drop the Vikings to the deck, and they're going to slap a Siege Tank out of the way with that extra mech damage. And it looks like Semper finding an opportunity. EJK taking the bait. Semper was doing whatever he could to bait EJK into a good engagement. And he's found it. And the supplies will even up. The worker count, the worker gap closing, and the production of Semper is exploding here to 5 factories against just 2 of EJK. And he has no more in production, and this is going to be a huge issue as time goes on. Alright. We see a Hellion drop as well. Blue Flame is completed for both players. No upgrades. It looks like +1 mech weapon is about to finish up for Semper. And I gotta say, I like where Semper is right now. He's got the Vikings on the ground, which is okay. It gives a real new meaning to Tank Viking, this new patch, by the way. I believe he scouted this medevac, but not quite able to bring the Vikings into position in time. A single Cyclone taking control of the Watchtower. Now, the upgrade advantage is going to go to Semper. I'm not entirely sure how that affects the matchup. It used to be that +1 mech weapons was really big in tank versus tank especially, but I have not seen nearly enough TVT on the balanced test map that I can't say decisively, like, this is a huge deal or this won't really change the fights that much. I'm not sure. But a nice Hellion run by coming up. He's got some damage done. 10 workers have been killed so far. That's actually going to bring him into the worker lead for possibly the first time since nearly the beginning of this game. EJK caught a little bit out of position. A large army out of Semper moving forward, but he doesn't want to risk getting sandwiched between 2 armies. He has the sensor tower in a really forward and ambitious position that's going to allow him to see wherever EJK moves. Really attempt to fight into this. He has the Cyclones. Now, we've seen EJK go for a lot more Cyclones, which are really effective. So this is what we've seen happen here. Semper's been reliant on the Vikings, especially Vikings on the ground, but not really siege tanks, and not really that much Hellions. So with those Vikings, a great counter is the Cyclones, because they're mobile like the Vikings, and they wreck them on the ground. if there are more siege tanks, you want more siege tanks of your own because the Cyclones get destroyed by the siege tanks. So EJK kind of scouting out the tech switch into heavy air and opting for more Cyclones. Of course, he's going to want to go back to tanks now, and I think he agrees, as he has no more Cyclones in production. But this is kind of a choice to keep yourself going where you're dealing with that air superiority and that potential Viking force. So this is a tech switch we haven't seen in the normal, in live at the moment, obviously, because Cyclones are a completely different unit. Alright, the 4th base has been taken by EJK. He's very mobile with these Cyclones, but he can't take a fight with them. He can't take a fight unless the tanks are in siege. It's very simple. The Cyclones will get destroyed. Now let's see. 75 damage versus armored. It will take 2¼ hits to wreck these Cyclones from the tanks. Tanks on this side. Is he actually going to try to fight this? He's dropping the Vikings to the ground after the PDD. We're going to have to see here. He's pushing forward. That's going to be a mistake. Now, air control is in favor here. We're going to see that old school slow bunny hop. Both players scanning. Some big damage coming out, biting off the front of this push. We have 3 tanks taking control of the watchtower and the casual 3 SCV. This isn't where you want to be today. He's pushing forward. He's trying to push in, but against the tanks, are the Vikings going to hit the ground? They're not, and that means Semper is not going to have enough front line, and these tanks will be chewed up. He's decided to retreat with his air superiority. I don't think EJK can push forward into another tank line, though, and I think he's about to agree with me. The supplies are pretty much even here. The worker count, effectively even. Both players on 4 bases. The upgrades are dead even as well, but soon to be in favor of Semper. On the ground. Several Thors in production to deal with this Viking count, I would only imagine. And EJK, both players getting a scan off here, seeing the siege tank lines, and whether they want to go for it. It looks like Semper has decided this is his point to fight. A couple auto turrets in front. The tanks are sieged. Is there enough? Semper is not sieging. There's a Thor holding it down. The boys are pulled off the line. He's trying to push forward. The Thor taking a lot of damage. The Cyclone's pushing through, but it looks like the back line of the tanks is just going to be enough to hold. 3 tanks will survive to none of Semper, and the supplies are dead even after that very intense exchange. I honestly had no idea who was going to come out on top. I did think EJK was going to win, but he didn't win by very much. Going into... Is he in he's in high impact mode to do single target damage to those Vikings. Now that he's wiped the Vikings out of the ground and the sky. A few Hellions are running by. There's nothing to match them right now. A good scan coming out. He sees a few units moving out of position. Semper is mass expanding, like EJK probably should be. A lot of SCVs right for the taking on this side. And we see a cleanup, but how many workers have been killed? That brings him down to 50 workers. Is that actually a huge deal? I'd say he would like to have about 60 workers right now. Neither player is maxed out, so obviously you don't want to sacrifice your SCVs. But that's not a huge deal as EJK only has 2.5 or so bases to mine off of. So this isn't going to be a huge difference in income until Semper gets this base on the right-hand side fully mining. You see moving forward, the Blue Flame Hellion going to hold down the watchtower, but for how long? EJK going to scout the front of this moving forward. Both players have overlapping sensor towers, so they know exactly when to scan if either player is starting to encroach on their territory with the army. A Thor and a tank kind of caught out of position. A very weird position to fight in here. He's going to try to take a cost-effective engagement, but the siege tank's on the ground, and they're pretty well spread out. I'm not sure this is the fight EJK wants to be taking. The Vikings hit the deck, but the fight is already lost. He goes back into the air, but I think that was possibly a game-losing mistake. Trying to take a fight on the open field is not where siege tanks excel. And now Semper finding himself 68 supply forward. It's going to take a massive throw into siege tanks here. Yeah, the Thor pounding forward. It will be taken out by the huge damage. The tanks are sieging up this planetary. The Vikings could drop on top. And it looks like Semper going to do exactly that in a moment. EJK is going to want to unsiege. He does so immediately. A base being denied on the right-hand side. It looks like EJK going for a semi-base trade. The Thor not being targeted down is going to be enough to pound down most of these tanks. A pretty good engage here for EJK. Semper kind of hanging out in limbo in the middle of the map, and this is exactly what EJK needs. He's biting off small chunks of army. He's bringing a small run-by on the right-hand side, and Semper is forced to retreat. EJK has bought himself a few more seconds. This planetary taking a fuck ton of damage right now. The Thor trying to move forward, taking a lot from the siege tanks. It is pounding through, but not pounding hard enough. Yeah, I said that out loud. The planetary under heavy fire. It's not going to go down. Not quite enough damage to get through. Semper about to have +3 on the tanks. Are we going to see an unsiege out of EJK? The friendly fire is very high. More tanks are moving forward. EJK has a couple Hellions to soak, but it looks like Semper has finally consolidated his forces. He's going to take a very cost-ineffective engage, but he's going to win the fight. And now EJK is starting to run a little bit out of money. Still 160 to 110 supply. Semper pushing forward. 2 siege tanks will be enough to drive this back at least temporarily. Semper still can't fight into these siege tanks, but he has 5 bases against barely 4. And the supply gap is still quite... What just happened that he lost 8 more supply? Something just happened that 8 more supply just died. I'm pretty sure he ran into this base or something. But EJK trying to struggle to keep up. A couple Cyclones at the Watchtower will be taken out. Okay, I wasn't sure what was going to happen there. For +3 has finished, and EJK is just now getting +2. So I don't know the exact math, but I can tell you this is a big difference. It's a big difference. Semper just trying to eventually lay down the killing blow here. He's nearly at 200 supply. EJK really heavy on the Cyclones, and this is something of a desperation move, because the Cyclones are just not a later game unit against the tanks. He's looking to try to take a fight or maybe a base trade, but I'm not sure he's ever going to have enough to force this army back up. Oh, this is not the SCV transfer he needed. Oh, just barely realizing the situation in time. He actually has his own depots keeping him from getting to another base. This might give away the fact that there's a hidden base in that bottom right-hand corner if Semper's looking closely enough. Yeah, a lot of Cyclones here from EJK. He can't fight this. Oof. The tank's taking big chunks out of everything. This is a very interesting situation here. He does drive faster. Do I hear a Liberator? I think I heard a Liberator. There's a Liberator somewhere. Oh, well, that's not good. 69, 74 against 52 workers have been killed so far. EJK going for the final fight. The boys have been pulled. Can he push forward? More Vikings on the deck. And it looks like it's just not going to be enough, as Semper takes it home 2-1 in a pretty sick set. EJK not able to do enough, using a lot of the new things on the balance test map, I gotta say, but not enough of them in order to take it home, unfortunately. So... Alright. But yeah, thank you to Semper and EJK for playing as well. Both of them, it's pretty late for both of them. Okay. And I'll be paying out their winnings before tomorrow night's stream. I'm not going to do it right now, but... and I'll be looking to set up a show match. That was fun. That was just kind of like, fuck it, let's do this kind of style. But maybe I can set up something slightly more official for this weekend. But hopefully you guys enjoyed the cast. It was pretty fun to see pretty high-level players play, and especially TVT, which is a matchup that changed a lot on the test map. So...